Welcome to this lecture. As usual, my name is Realtor Z, founder of Zee Realty, which is a real estate company channeled towards helping the younger generation invest smartly and safely in real estate. Today, we're going to be looking at real estate investment strategies. Right, and like I'll frequently say when I'm training or coaching, it's a strategy, right, that makes it an investment. The strategy that makes it an investment, right? Anything that involves us putting money in a place and expecting it to grow over time would require a strategy for long term. So if you're going to come into real estate, you have to come in with a strategy in mind. You're asking yourself, what exactly do I want? Right? What exactly fits me? What exactly can I accommodate? Which will determine the kind of strategy you will take up on. In this basic lecture, we're going to be talking about, like I said, the most common strategies. There are a lot more, right? But we'll look at the most common real estate strategies. Number one, which is the most common, is land banking. So what exactly is land banking? It's very simple. Let's say I buy land A in the year 2000. And then my plan is, remember, because the demand for land is always increasing, there's a high chance the price will increase. This land A in 2023, after 23 years, the price will go up. So if this was 10 million naira, this land can be up to 50 million naira depending on the location. So that way, I am in a strategy that involves, one, I'm investing in lands. Two, time is my major advantage, right? And then obviously I have to be very, very strategic about my location. So it's really, really important. For land banking, you must be somebody who has patience and time to wait. So you're not coming in today and coming out in 6 months. You're not coming in today and sometimes you're not even coming out in 5 years. Well, it depends on you, right? So you need to have patience. I need to have the ability to wait. So if you are doing land banking, you are not going to come in today with money that you need probably in the next 3 months. No, you can't use that money to land bank. If you want to land bank, you want to ensure that you're going to spend a lengthy time. That's where the money of land banking is, in time. Time is the multiplier, the core multiplier in land banking. Time is the key multiplier, right? So let's move on to the next one, which is rental income. So what is rental income? Rental income is very simple. This time, there are two ways you can have rental income. Number one is rental income on land. Number two, rental income on houses. Or let me put it as structures. So when we're talking about rental income on land, contrary to what many people believe, you can actually lease out your land. So what is leasing out? You say, okay, I have a very large expanse of land. I don't really have anything to do with it now. It's in a place where maybe there's a high demand for commercial properties, or maybe like a church. So you say, you know what? I can lease this land out for 5 years, right? It's not exactly, under rental. It's called leasing, right? So I can lease it out for 5 years. So pay me for the 5 years, right? It can be yearly or it can be whatever, bi-yearly, or it could even be one-time payment. After the 5 years, give me my land back. And the same, my land back, sorry. And the same way you can do it for a land, you can actually also do it for a property, that's a house or a warehouse or a commercial building, whatever. Right? But usually you can lease out your lands and say, okay, be using it, give me money every year as you're using it. Right? So I don't know how many of you have seen some churches, they just have a bare land and they put this large marquee tent. I'm hoping I get this marquee tent. So that tent is usually for the church. However, the land usually is a lease, right? So they just lease the land, put their tent, right? And I mean, churches who have very high growth sometimes don't want to build permanent structures, and that's because you know, they feel that if they build probably 100-seater, they will outgrow it soon and all of that. So they can use this strategy. Now, the second way you can get rental is from houses and structures, which is the more common way. So you can literally maybe build or buy a house, and then what you say is, I'm going to rent it out to tenants. Or like I said, you can also lease, which is usually a longer term. And you know, a few tweaks here and there is what really makes a lease differ from a rent. But I'm not going to go into all those details now. Right? So you can do that, tenant or lease. Right? So you can rent or you can lease, and then they pay you yearly. However, where this usually has an issue is if you are renting, you must take into cognizance a few things. Number one is the ways you get your tenants, right? And what do I mean by this? Ways you get your tenants. I've had scenarios where we work with a client. Now we rent out this house to tenants, right? Now when we rent it out to tenants, because of our years of experience, we have realized that tenants don't exactly, they can't even predict their finance. Some tenants can't predict their financial circumstances. So they pay for the first year, and by the next year, you are the one begging for them to pay. So one of the things that we do when we want to assist our clients, get tenants, we have ways which we screen the tenants. I remember a particular person said he doesn't want anybody who is not working in a bank or working in an oil company. And his projection from that is quite simple, that there's a high chance these people have stable and steady income, right? So he never has to beg for rent, right? And why is that? Because when you beg for rent, for example, Nigerian law does not actually allow the landlord to throw your things from the house. It also does, I think there's a period of time, I think for about 6 to 12 months, before they can actually, evict you after your rent has expired. Do you understand? So some of them say, instead of me having to start fighting legal cases, I better screen who can take my houses. So if you're going to, go through rental income, you want to ensure that. Number two is you also want to ensure the maintenance of your property. So usually there's a terrible culture where people do not exactly take care of things that are not their own. So you give a very good, amazing house, you just painted it, and by the time they rent the house, right, by the time, let's say the tenants stayed there for 2 years, by the time they are coming out, the walls are tattered, the toilets are broken, your house is just upside down, and then you have to spend a lot of fees for renovation, right? So because of that, some people make them pay what we call a caution fee, right? So let's say you rent the house for ₦1 million, they can say your caution fee is 250k. So when you're about to leave the house, they will now come and check and say, okay, did you break this? Did you break that? Some days, some tenants are so terrible that their caution fee even exceeds 250k, so they have to even pay, extra. And I mean, in the real estate, we see a lot. Some tenants actually run away in the middle of the night. You will just come back and see that they have dropped the key. And they have actually gone out of the property because, they know how terrible they have run the place. So you want to ensure that you screen who stays in your property, and you want to also ensure that the maintenance of your property. And the last thing is you want to ensure that you are clear on who handles the costing of your property. The costing of your property. And what do I mean by the costing? So let me say cost associated, not costing. Cost associated. So what do I mean by that? So usually, whoever is living in a house has to pay some bills. It could be PHCN bills, that's bills for power. It could be bills for water. It could be bills for land use. Depends on where you are, right? So you need to clarify this thing, right? If the property is in an estate, who is paying the estate bills? Is it the landlord or is it your tenant, right? So you don't assume, right? And usually, one of the smartest things to do when getting someone, tenants, is to ensure that you have one, a very good lawyer, right? And then two, an agent. So the agent will be the one to get the people to stay and do the screening, and the lawyer will draft the contract. And sometimes the lawyer is also an agent. That's usually what happens most of the times. So once he comes, they'll have all of that, right? And usually they have a small commission. So he says, because I helped you get a tenant, I'm going to take a 10% commission. And so you have to be also, those are part of the costs associated. So you let them know you bear what they call the agency fee, right? And the last, this is getting really popular nowadays. Real estate investment strategy is co-ownership. So what exactly is co-ownership? Remember, one of the disadvantages of real estate is it is cost intensive. Real estate takes a lot of money. So some people came up, right? The truth is that the origin of this, I can't exactly trace, right? There are two forms that are happening, and I'm going to explain the pros and cons of each of the forms. The first one is, and I'm going to show you how best to run both forms, right? So let me quickly clear the text off the screen. So what is co-ownership? Now this plot of land, let's use plot A, is really big. It's really big. It's really big. Right, so let's say it's about 50 million. Now, I say it's really expensive. I can't afford to pay 50 million. So what I can go and do is I'll say, I have 5 friends, right? What if 5 of us bring 10, 10, 10, 10, 10? Right, so we divide this land into 5. I don't know how I can do that successfully here. So, I don't know. Okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know, but basically, you understand what I'm saying. Right, so each of us now own a portion of that property. So that's what we call co-ownership. Now, this may not just be for a house. Sorry, for a land. For a house, it could be the same thing. So let's say this house, right, it's 5 flats. So we can co-own it. So maybe to build the entire 5 flats is, let's say, the same 50 million. So all of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my friends, we drop 10 million. And now all of us, we can now say, since there are 5 flats, each person takes a flat. And so what they can now do is say, because each person takes a flat, they can now say there's a central agent, right? Let's say they rent out the property, and the rent from your particular flat, they'll be depositing it in your account. So that way, all of us own that building, and we're taking rent from our flats, right? So that's how co-ownership can work, right? In the same vein, they may not want rental income, so they can build the property, right? So let's say they built the house for 50 million. They don't want to rent it out. They hold it for a while. It goes to 100 million, and so they sell it off. So all of them initially put in 10 million, and then all of them are now having 20 million because the property was 50 million Now it's 100 million, right? So now they own, they made 100% on their investment. So that's how co-ownership works, right? The main thing is they split that cost amongst themselves, and they now bear the profit or the loss, right? The other way this is done lately, right, as at the time teaching this training, we're seeing a spike and a rise of co-ownership applications, right? So what they say is this time you don't need to look for 5 people, right? So they just allow you invest in units. So you just go to the application and then buy some shares. So some go for as low as 20,000 and all of that. I would have mentioned names here, but this will probably be watched years later and they may not be existing. Number 2, they are not paying me for ads. I'm joking, but I'm really cautious of mentioning names of applications, right? I'm sure wherever you see this video, there'll be a way to contact us, so you can send us a message, right? So I can let you know names, but I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of each of them. So the traditional method, which is getting 5 people, the only thing is that, listen, if you're doing that, I'll advise that you get a lawyer to sign a very detailed contract, right? Or an MOU, memorandum, between all of you. And why is this? Because nobody knows tomorrow. So you say, my friend and I, we bought land today, but don't worry, we trust him. Let the land be in his name. Before you know it, or you say, I'm about to marry, I really love my boyfriend, we bought the land together. Now the guy breaks up with you, or the lady breaks up with you and goes with your property. So no matter, even though it's your brother, no matter who you are buying a property with, number 1, never engage in a transaction that is not clearly written. Number 2, ensure that it's carried out by a lawyer. And why is this? Because if anything happens and you have to go to the court of law, right, and things are not properly drafted, they're what we call legal booby traps. Legal booby traps. So they can put some clauses. I remember, we're producing a document with our legal team here, and there was a trap, just a very small clause. So they've written everything was correct and all of that. There was a small clause that said, I think it said something like the agreement in this contract can be updated at will without the consent of the other party. So our lawyers drew our attention to it and said, sir, this is dangerous. What this means is they can wake up and change it without your consent. So the land that they said was for us, they can say it's no more for us. And that's really, really, really dangerous, right? So you want to ensure that you have the expertise of a lawyer, right? If you are going with the traditional method, right? The traditional method, you don't have the expertise of a lawyer, right? And also, like I said, you want to, if for example you're buying a land, you want to lay clearly the terms and conditions. So let me give you an example. We had an instance where about 5 people bought a land. 1, 2, 3, 4. Was it 5 or 6? Yeah, I think it was about 6 people. They combined to buy a land. So eventually, 1, 2, 3 of them said they wanted to sell. 1, 2, 3 of them said we don't want to sell. We want to keep this plot of land. So 3 wanted to sell. Apologies. And 3 wanted to keep. So the question is, these guys, if you say majority carries the vote, majority is carrying the vote on both ends. So there was a confusion, and they eventually had to come to a point of agreement on what to do, right? So let me give you a very salient hack. What you can do is you can say we always have odd numbers to buy a property. So we never buy a property in 1, 2, 3, 4 because majority, right? 2 is majority, 3 and 4 they are both majority, right? So what you can say odd numbers. So we say 1, 2, 3. So there's no way that the majority can be tilted because they always want odd. So if two people say they want to sell, then it means it's time to sell. If one person says, two people say they don't want to sell, the same thing. So you can use what we call the odd majority advantage to ensure that if you are buying together, we're making sure you must make that clause in your contract that the decision of the majority is hard out. They will take, you take a decision on the property. So does that make sense? So you must ensure that you are cautious of that. And yeah, talking about, not the traditional method now, the updated tech methods of using apps. My problem with that is when you are using applications to invest in property, the property loses its tangibility advantage, which is one of the core advantages of real estate. So what do I mean? Okay, you told me there's a land somewhere, probably in Ekpe or Bejuleki, and then you said I can buy a unit for 20,000. How do I prove that it's mine? Do you understand? I can't hold it. I can't feel it. It's almost getting back to shares or stocks or crypto, where I just buy something in an app and I can't see it. However, for the traditional one, we have gone to the property, we know where it is, and even the ownership, I have documents to show, right? That because my name would be in the document of the owners. So that's the issue that I have. I've dealt with a lot of companies who try to solve this, but personally, I don't think I'm yet 100% convinced about that method. So, if I were to pull a co-ownership, I'll probably go through the traditional method. But the advantage of that one is you don't have to know a lot of people. And then some apps do rental co-ownership. So what happens is you own a portion of a big building. So when they take the rent, let's say you are 10 that own that building, and then the rent of that building is 1 million. So when they take the rent and they remove their expenses, they will share the rent and pay into your account. So it's like eternal passive income. I think I can go with that. I mean, it makes more sense to me because the money is coming to my account. But to just say I'm buying and owning a land somewhere, hopefully, it's usually very problematic. Right, so I'm hoping that you've gained value from today's session, right? So that brings us to today's this training session on real estate investment strategies. Once again, my name is Bolo Kwade, fondly called Realtor Z, and I'm the co-founder and CEO here at Zee Realty, a real estate company which aims to help the younger generation invest in real estate smartly and safely. Have an amazing day.